Welcome to Significant Brothers. It's siblings shooting the breeze one topic at a time. I'm Chase.
I'm Brad.
I'm Anna.
And I'm Kray.
And today we're talking about misconceptions.
Oh, so we're not talking about like the birth of Christ or something like that, or like unwanted pregnancies.
See, darn it! I was about to make that joke too. I was like, "Is this?"
I
funny
was
to
too.
misconceive someone?
Oh my gosh.
I have it written down as the next line. Gosh,
I'm
Oh,
the
man.
only one that didn't think of that.
I literally just thought of it.
I've probably talked about this maybe a few times in my life, and I think you guys might have been there for when I heard this, and I thought this was a good misconception because we all do it every single night. My misconception is that we need 8 consecutive hours of sleep in a row each night.
Do we not?
Are you suggesting that like we could break them up, or we can catch up on them on different days?
Oh, no, apparently the catching up thing, I didn't research this at all, but apparently that's not possible, to catch up on the sleep. Actually, no, I'm gonna rescind that because I've heard, you know what, I didn't even research that, so we're not talking about that, right? What do you think about that? I want to hear your opinion.
I feel very bad after naps. That's how I feel about that, but I love taking naps.
I took an hour and a half nap after dinner last night. That was a really bad decision.
There was this idea, I don't know if you've heard of it, there's like different types of sleep, like biphasic sleep and polyphasic sleep, sleeping twice a day or sleeping multiple times throughout the day and just breaking up all of your naps. But there's this one circadian rhythm, or well, I guess it's the same circadian rhythm. There was this one way that people used to sleep a while ago, and it was they would sleep for 4 hours, wake up, and then like do something for an hour, and then go back to bed for 4 hours, and that was it. And apparently that's more natural.
Something.
They, yes, we can get to what they would do.
You guys were using air quotes too. I don't think that translates very well to the podcast.
I did use air quotes.
Did I say something?
Okay, Chase.
I think I waved my
just
hand.
did air quotes again.
I said
and so did
something.
Brad. I just want everyone to know.
Right, that's true. Okay, well, this isn't. You know what? I don't even need air quotes for this because it technically was something. They would do something, and then they'd go back to bed. But seeing how you guys are so enamored with this something that we're talking about, and I didn't put in air quotes that time, I just waved my hands around. They typically what people would do, and this was like you might be curious as to when, like this was like 16th century, 17th century, and way before that. People assume that this is how people slept in societies for forever up until about the 19th century. I guess what people would do is they would read a book, have sex, reflect on their dreams, visit their neighbors, reflect on their dreams with their neighbors, have sex with their neighbors, rob your neighbors, sleep in your neighbor's bed, you know, just normal things that, I mean, I was told by Taco Bell, I think before, like, that I was supposed to eat tacos at like 2 o'clock in the morning.
That is something.
That is definitely a something. I don't know. I don't think you could probably eat food. Sure. I don't think people would. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I don't think that matters. What matters is that you're up for an hour or two. Actually, I forgot to mention that it could be 2 hours, and then you go back to bed.
I guess probably. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just thinking, like, if I decided to, like, randomly implement this in my life, like, my roommates would be so pissed off. If I just, like, get up at, like, 4 in the morning and start, like, working on a paper with the lights on, like, that wouldn't work too well.
That wouldn't work too well nowadays, but also that wouldn't work too well back then. And there's a number of reasons why we don't do this now, but that just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, if you were to wake up for an hour and do stuff nowadays, it'd be really tempting to go on your computer or go play a video game or something, and the lights that you would have on, I think, would just keep you up.
Yeah, it's the color temperature, right?
Yeah. Basically, because you're staring at screens, then you'd have a harder time falling asleep again.
That's true.
Yes. Agreed. So I think in the early 90s, there's this psychiatrist named Thomas Ware he conducted an experiment where he put people into like a dark room for 14 hours a day, and this happened over the course of a month, and they were on like a normal, like I think they'd go out to their jobs like during the day, but they'd come back after they're done working to this room for 14 hours, and they would sleep for 4 hours, and they would just naturally wake up for an hour, and then they'd go back to bed, and they were in complete darkness. And so it's just a natural rhythm that after a month their bodies fell into when they were in like really complete darkness, and they didn't really have a choice.
Okay.
So one study, I know. But there was this paper that was published by a guy named Roger Ekirk, and he spent 16 years pulling historical evidence that not that this is what he was. So his angle was that people did this, and we aren't aware that everybody did this back in the day. Like, this was a very normal thing that everybody did, and you can go back and you can read like journals and like diaries and medical books and even literature, and you can see all of these things that reference a first sleep and a second sleep in the middle of the night, and what to do during your 1 hour break of sleep.
How long ago? Like, when did they stop finding evidence of this in literature or what have you?
It was around like the 19th century is when people stopped doing it. But so like you can even see like so some of the things that he referenced were a prayer manual that had a bunch of prayers. This was in the 15th century of prayers that you should say during your waked hours in between first and second sleep. And there was a doctor's manual from the 16th century that said the best time to conceive is after the first sleep. You see it in Don Quixote. It's referenced.
Hey, we talked about that on a previous episode.
That's the only reason that I am bringing this up.
Episode 23, fanfiction.
Don Quixote followed nature, and being satisfied with his first sleep did not solicit more. As for Sancho, he never wanted a second, for the first lasted him from night to morning. So that's Sancho.
Oh, what a weirdo.
I know. It's enough to just like point out though, but it was such a common thing that like you might not see it more because like that was just like status quo of like, of course you do a first and second sleep. You're weird if you don't. So you even see it in Anthony Kiedis's lyrics for a Red Hot Chili Pepper song, Sir Psycho Sexy. Now I lay me down to sleepy, I pray the funk will make me freaky.
That's
I actually really love that quote.
If I should die before I am waked, allow me, Lord, to rock out naked.
That's amazing.
But you know what? Back in the day, you know what people would do when it got dark is they would go to sleep. Not like we do now where you're like, I'm going to stay up and do something, watch some television, go to the pub with my boys, stuff like that. You didn't do that because there were no pubs to go to, and it wasn't very safe to go outside because there was no light. Light was something that was really expensive and hard to get. It was only through like, you know, candles for the longest time, and those were kind of hard to make because you had to raise a cow, kill it, get some twine, and then spend hours and hours dipping it. So the only people who were out at night were like criminals and prostitutes, and you were gonna get mugged probably. In fact, if people are so curious about light, there's a really good episode by the NPR podcast Planet Money, episode 534. Link in the show notes. But with the, you know, this makes sense, the advent of light, people were able to like stay up later and like read a book and, you know, do stuff. But before that, like if you were like lower class, you couldn't do it. So the very first people who deviated from the 2 sleeps a night were the rich who could like stay up later. And yeah.
I never really thought about light being a luxury. That could get you further ahead because you weren't rich enough to afford light.
Yeah, isn't that crazy to think about?
That is really crazy.
But some of the first people who actually did start deviating from the sleep cycles were Protestants and Catholics during the Reformation, because they would, at least if you were like Protestant, you would keep your you would do some of your services at night to keep them secret. So one of the cities where you see people first deviating from the light thing is Paris in 1667. Kray, you'll like this. They were the first city to install gas street lights,
Nice.
or just street lights in general. So,
Now that's urban planning.
and this is it's not just for the rich anymore. It's for everybody, because like everybody contributes to these. So yeah, and that's kind of why you see Paris have like an uprising in like culture and like restaurants, and just like it was the first one to adopt like a nightlife, and then a lot of places around Europe, like Amsterdam and London, around that time also started putting streetlights, and then we see a fall in people referencing their first and second sleep. And even in 1829, there was a medical journal that was urging parents to force their children out of the pattern of first and second sleep.
Whoa.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And actually, coincidentally with this, at the end of the 19th century is when we really stopped seeing people talk about first and second sleep. And this is where we start seeing references to insomnia and people staying up. And so this could be because people are staying up like later because they have light, or it's just unnatural for their body to do a full 8 hours, or when they wake up they're like, oh no, I'm not supposed to be up, which they are, but they get panicked and they kind of stress, and then that stress affects their ability to sleep, is what some people say.
So do you think switching out of the 2 4-hour sleeps has had like an overall negative effect on all of us, or do you think by this point we've pretty much adjusted?
Oh, that's a good question, because I don't know if it's necessarily had a negative effect, but if people view waking up in the middle of the night negatively, then I could see that having a negative effect. Like people, I think that like causes stress, and people to like, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, is like sleep stuff, like pillows, mattresses, but also like sleeping pills. And like people either have more problems sleeping, or it appears that they do because they just naturally wake up at night. Because I don't know about you guys, like I very seldom do I actually go like a full 8 hours just straight. Like it's more weird if I like don't even remember waking up at all.
That's
Really?
true. I don't always stay up through the entire night.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe we have adjusted, but it's like you kind of can afford to not be adjusted, because you have light and you can stay up later.
See, now I kind of want to try doing the whole 4-1-4 sleep pattern, but
I don't know if you can.
then you need 9 hours total.
Yeah.
And,
That's true.
That's a real deal breaker for me.
And you know what? For a long, long time, humans didn't have any of these lights in our faces, so that's the way we came up, and so maybe it is putting stress on us. Nobody knows for sure. I don't think we're going to go back.
I don't think so either. I also think if we truly haven't adjusted from that sleep pattern, assuming we've done it since like the inception of humans, I don't see us adjusting to that for a really, really long time.
Moral story is people are quicker nowadays because we're fast asleep.
Okay. Well, mine is not just one specific thing. I'm just gonna kind of list some language misconceptions, like phrases and words. So, I think all of us know who this person is because of a gathering we had while playing fishbowl. But everyone knows who Thomas Crapper is, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Invented the toilet. So, the word crap, saying, oh, crap. It did not come from Thomas Crapper, which apparently people thought that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Wait, so
I never thought that, but if someone told me that, I would believe it.
is the misconception that because he's associated with the toilet, poop, saying and then crap. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's the misconception?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, but the surname Crapper is not, it does not mean crap. I know we say crap, so we say crap because Thomas Crapper, and so that's, like, crap means poop because he invented it, you know? Like,
Yeah, because
it doesn't actually mean
yeah,
poop.
because he invented the toilet.
Yeah.
But actually, the surname was, like, a variant of cropper, which means someone who harvested crops.
Ah.
So then the
Oh.
phrase, so are you saying "oh crap" is derived from somewhere else?
Like an etymology way, I guess you would say that, but like culturally it still would mean like crap, you know?
Yeah.
No, I'm confused because, okay, so crapper is related to the toilet because he invented the toilet. You get crap from poop
Yeah.
because
Yes.
that goes in
Yes.
the toilet. So but you're saying crap is totally unrelated to crapper.
Not like totally unrelated, but like technically crap comes from crapper, which actually means cropper, harvested crops.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we do say crap because of crapper.
Yes, we do. So people think it like, you know what I'm saying, guys?
I get what you're saying, but I think people
I
say
get what you're
"oh
saying.
crap"
I don't
because
think-
of crapper.
Yeah.
Yes, I know that people say crap because it's from crapper. I'm just saying that the word crapper technically is like, does not mean poop.
Oh, like his
so-
family name wasn't derived from those who poop everywhere.
Okay, this fact did not work out like that.
No,
I
no,
wanted
no.
it to.
I think it's interesting and fascinating and really good. The part that I guess you would misconceive then. So the actual, I think the actual misconception was that the word crap actually like literally means like in the dictionary, like that means poop.
Yes,
That's
the word crap comes from a medieval Latin word, crappa, crappa, which means chaff, and that is like
Like shafts?
No, chaff. It means like dry, like protections like around a grain, like a shell of a grain, like kind of like sunflower seed, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I
Like
yeah, I
the
know what
outside of it,
chaff
yeah.
is.
So crap technically means like the outside of a grain, you know?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I should have thrown that in. Sorry. You guys didn't give me an opportunity because you guys were yelling at me.
Well, what's the next one that we can tear apart?
Okay. Yeah. Golf. Where did that come from? Like, what does golf stand for, guys?
Wait, it's an acronym?
Apparently it was, like, thought to be an acronym.
Oh wow.
I have
I
no
have
idea.
that misconception now.
Yeah. I didn't know that, and I was like, does anyone ever think that?
Wow. All right,
some
hold on.
s-
I'm trying to piece it together.
Green object
No.
loves far.
No, not at
The
all.
golf ball's not green.
Go
Good old
go
limbering.
obstruct. Yeah.
What is it? What did it
It's-
stand for?
People thought it meant gentlemen only, ladies forbidden.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Is that actually what it's where it came
No.
from? Oh.
People said, like, it says, like, oh yeah, people thought this, but the word, like, the true origin is unknown. Like, that was really unhelpful.
Oh, the
but I thought
And I
I
feel like you're just giving us all of these things that, like, people thought this, but it's not. And it's like, I don't know.
The other one I literally totally gave you an explanation for. I, like, actually gave you a good explanation for that one.
I
And, yeah,
think what
thanks.
I didn't know was what the misconception was. This one is that people think it's an acronym, but it's actually not.
Yeah.
That is
I'm
fascinating.
sorry that I'm actually the worst. Okay.
No. That one made sense. You know, for those people who are listening who thought that about golf, well, guess what? Anna says
not.
you're wrong.
Next one that I have, I actually knew this one. So for like Christmas time, some people just shorten Christmas to like Xmas,
Oh, yeah.
and people really get their panties in a wad about it.
Oh.
Cause like they're just like, oh, you're taking the Christ out of Christmas, you heathen.
That is
but
they think it's like an atheist agenda or a secular
Yeah.
agenda. That's the misconception.
Yes.
Okay.
But actually, X in Greek means Christos, which is Christ.
I did know that one. But
I think I had heard that.
that
too.
is true. I've definitely heard a sermon in which people the past I've heard a sermon in which someone said, yes, the X does mean Christ. It goes to show how even when the atheists try to push forward that agenda, they fail because Xmas still means Christmas. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it went. I think that's just how it started. But
This last one, I was actually kind of shocked. So, what do you guys think, like, 420 comes from?
Oh, man.
Here it's from a police code.
Oh, that's
See,
what the misconception.
Seatbelt day, right?
Wait, Brad, what'd you say?
I've always heard, which is probably true, it's probably part of the joke, but it's National Buckle Your Seatbelt Day. You shouldn't want to get pulled over.
No, that's not what I was gonna say, but that's also great. So, apparently, that's not actually, like, a thing. Like, it's not, a 420 is not, like, being caught with marijuana or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
It's apparently, like, a juvenile disturbance.
Oh.
But apparently 420 came from some kids at a high school in the 70s. Like, every day at 420, they would go, a group of students, they'd, like, go smoke under a statue. Go smoke marijuana under a statue.
Oh.
Yeah,
And then they just made
That's what
made that popular.
I guess so.
Wow.
I feel like high school
Wow.
students are good at making things popular, like that make it into the national, like, meme scene, you know?
Please, Kray,
Yeah.
call them the youth.
I think it's really easy now with, like, social media, but, like, just thinking, like, back then, like, that, like, 420 is, like, a widely known, like, everyone knows what that means. All the youth does.
The youths.
But the youths, they all know what that means. But they, like, got that around without any sort of, like, social media. So, moral of the story, you can never take the Christ out of Christmas.
I have some misconceptions about the tongue.
Do you still, after researching your part, have misconceptions about the tongue?
I don't. I think I'd heard at least one of these before that wasn't actually true, but I think it's something that everyone has been taught. And it's that. So, do you guys remember in elementary school when you were taught about the senses, or like what your tongue could taste, and then where your tongue tasted the different things? Like bitter was towards the back.
Yeah.
That's not true at all.
Huh.
Like, the whole tongue map is not real at all.
I feel upset that I learned that in a school.
Yeah, we basically were all taught that there were 4 areas that our tongue could taste. It was sweet towards the front, sour in the middle, I think, salty on the sides, and bitter in the back.
You know what?
What?
I never learned this.
What?
I never remember him learning this. I
Oh,
don't
the
remember that.
generational gap between Brad's science and Anna's, where they
Well,
just
Kray, did you learn this?
I can't really remember. I was going to say I think that's why you get so many different flavors from French kissing, but I mean, apparently that's all my imagination.
What? Oh my gosh.
you get so many different flavors.
What?
What?
What flavors are you getting?
I was thinking the salty and the sweet.
That made me very uncomfortable, Kray.
Wait.
No, because
Are you
Brad
getting
was
it on other people's tongues?
no, because Brad was talking about the tasting map. So like sweet near the front, bitter in the back, salty on the sides. Just all very gross things to imagine if you're imagining someone French kissing. Got all these.
Or your brother,
got
yeah.
got all these different taste areas.
That's hilarious.
So, basically, you can taste everything, and this is pretty much debunkable right away. Like, if you like put the tip of your tongue on something salty, you're gonna taste how salty it is.
Like another tongue.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my. So,
This is great.
and you guys have heard of the Nature Journal, right?
Yeah.
So back in 2006, they released an article about saying like how scientists have identified a protein that detects sour taste on the tongue, and how it's basically found all over the tongue, and it's really more useful in other mammals for determining if something's spoiled, that kind of thing. So, but really only in recent years has the tasting receptors been identified, and really one of the first breakthroughs in taste research was back in 1974, when they okay, so this is the crazy part. Is back in 1974, it was the realization that the tongue map was basically a century-old misunderstanding that no one had challenged. So, back in the early 1900s, like 1901, we did the whole taste map thing. In the 70s, we kind of realized it's bogus. And then in the 90s and early 2000s, Brad was still being taught this in school.
I was gonna say, so it was like for 100 years, like, nobody just challenged it. It's just like, you could very easily be like, hey, does this salty thing taste sweet to you on the front of your tongue? No. Huh. And they just kept going.
Yeah, exactly.
My tongue must be broken.
So yeah, we know there's the 5 basic senses of the tongue with salty, sweet, blah, blah, blah. But scientists have agreed that there's a 5th distinct taste called umami.
Ooh, mommy.
Ooh, mommy, this gets us hungry.
Hungry! So the reason it's called umami is, if you can guess, it was discovered by Japanese scientists. This was discovered back in the early 1900s, and it's the taste of glucomate.
Of what?
Glutamate. And it's common in Japanese foods.
Glutamate?
Probably that one, glutamate.
I think it's glutamate.
Glutamate. But it's in like sea vegetable similar to kelp, bacon, kumbo, and MSG.
See, I'm trying to imagine what... I can't imagine this taste. Do you have like... what's kumbo?
I don't know.
It's like gumbo?
Oh, I love gumbo. And then there's also considerable debate about another taste receptor for fat as well.
Tastes like chicken.
Wait, I'm still confused at like what actually this does. What does this taste like?
I don't know.
So the tastes are salty, sweet, bitter, chicken, and
Salty, sweet,
umami.
sour, bitter, umami, and potentially fat. So there's 4 that we know of that are like good to go. Potentially a 5th one and potentially a 6th one. So yeah, basically, main big misconception about the tongue is that the taste maps are complete bogus. You can taste everything basically everywhere. There's potentially more tastes out there that is being debated. But the other myth about the tongue that I've heard this, I don't know if you guys have heard this before, but it's that the tongue is the strongest muscle in the body.
Is it not?
It's not, but I don't know if you guys have heard that before.
I
I've
think
heard
I've heard that.
But one of the reasons that people think that the tongue is the strongest muscle in the body is it's kind of closely assimilate. People think tongue, they think jaw, and the jaw muscles are the strongest, due to have a mechanical advantage, and basically our muscles attached to the jaw and form a lever, and that gives it the most consistent strength in that area. The quadriceps and the gluteus maximus have the highest concentration of muscle fibers, and for pure measure of strength, and then the heart is the strongest muscle. If you measure strength, is a continuous activity without fatigue.
My old ticker sure has been working a while. Never gets a break.
No. Sometimes I just, I'll shock myself until I give it a break for like 5-10 minutes. I think in the long run, it'll allow me to live longer.
Probably.
Moral of the story is, like French cuisine, French kissing has lots of different tastes.
Oh.
That's a good one.
Alright guys, so I have a misconception that I think is pretty intuitive, but I also think it might not be something that people think about a lot. But I think it's intuitive to think that if a road has a lot of traffic congestion, it gets a lot of traffic jam. I know, Brad, you're going to love this one, because we've definitely argued about this before. If you add a lane there, there will be less traffic. You got all this traffic, add another lane, boom, less traffic. It frees up the road. That totally intuitively makes sense. But that's when we start to run into a problem called induced demand. So, induced demand is a phenomenon that after you increase the supply of something, so after you add a lane, more of the good will be consumed, meaning it's sort of a poor way of addressing congestion. So once you add a lane, more people will want to consume that lane. It sort of encourages more drivers to go out onto the street. In 1955, this guy named Lewis Mumford wrote in the New Yorker, "People, it seems, find it hard to believe that the cure for congestion is not more facilities for congestion." Which is a pretty good quote. In 2004, a meta-analysis of dozens of studies showed, on average, a 10% increase in lane miles induces an immediate 4% increase in vehicle miles traveled, which climbs to 10% in a few years.
So that supports what you said then.
Yeah, so basically, if you increase the amount of road by 10% in a few years, the traffic will just even that out. It's not actually like a good long-term solution for anything. Like, and other empirical studies support this. And the reason it increases is, one, diverted travel. If you're taking a certain way to work and you realize this other way would be quicker, you will divert your travel to this road that has, for a little bit, less traffic, or that is larger, or you start timing your travels at different intervals. So maybe before you left work earlier to avoid peak congestion, but now you're going the time that you'd usually want to go because there's less congestion, which again ends up.
So I guess one of the questions is if you were going to add a lane of traffic or build a new road, if it increases by, what did you say the average increase was? Like, was it 10%?
10%. Well, if you increase if you increase lane miles by 10%, the vehicle miles traveled will increase by 10% in a few years.
Oh, they even out completely. Okay.
Yeah. This was a meta-analysis of dozens of studies. So it wasn't just like in Toronto or in San Francisco or something like that.
But that
Okay.
traffic has to come
For-
from somewhere. So I feel like if you're increasing the miles by 10% on this road, the traffic increases by 10%, that is coming from somewhere else.
Right, exactly. So people are diverting their travels from one road to another. They're timing it different, and also if people see that a road is opening up, they might stop taking public transport because the car would be more efficient, or they can decide to travel in a different way they usually would not have done.
I just think that, what's the name of the road? Anna, where do you go to
Beltline.
school? I
East
think the
Beltline.
Beltline could benefit from having 3 lanes.
Right. So that
Yeah.
intuitively, you guys think that would make sense, but I'm telling you, in a few years, you actually would have improved nothing. And there's the same logic for public transit. You could just increase public transit by a lot, but as soon as cars are jumping to public transit, other cars will take their place. So that actually wouldn't help either.
I guess what you're saying is, so like, if I go into Rockford, I take the highway, I don't know what it's called,
131.
instead of the belt line, because the belt line's busier. And then, so then if in a few years they add a 3rd lane, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to take the belt line instead now because it'll be less busy. And that's the reason why it gets more congested, because people think it'll be like quicker and stuff, so they'll like take that instead of their alternative routes, and that's why it gets more congested.
Yeah, like
Congested?
so if they added a 3rd lane on that road, within the first year, on average, there will be a 4% increase in traffic, which
Okay.
is
No, I
fine
get
because
that.
you increase it over that amount. But in a few years, that'll just even out. Now there's also, so that's induced demand. There's also something called reduced demand. And basically, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. Decrease in road capacity will increase the cost of travel and will reduce demand for that travel. So
Say that again.
so a decrease in road capacity will increase your cost of travel and reduce demand for that certain road.
Okay.
So people may stop making certain trips. They may condense multiple trips into one. They may retime their trips, use public transport, carpool, walk, bike, what have you. I have some examples of this if it's sort of not clear. There's good examples of it in like Manhattan, Seoul, San Francisco. So in Manhattan, there's the West Side Highway, and they tore down part of it in Manhattan. And instead of traffic being displaced somewhere else, it disappeared. The New York State Department of Transportation study showed 93% of traffic was not displaced, but just vanished.
That's really weird.
Yeah, they
Wow.
just took away a
That's
freeway.
crazy.
They took away a freeway. The traffic wasn't replaced. Was it put? I mean, where did they go? To public transportation?
I guess so. I would
Just
assume
a weird amount of people just vanished.
They all died. They were all actually on the freeway while they were being torn down. Well, here's another.
Man.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Here's another
Well,
example.
that's fascinating because like you think that I mean like I guess that the supply is what really controls the demand in that situation, in
Yeah.
either capacity. But actually no, because then you said it. I mean they probably shifted because why did they take away an entire freeway?
I think part of it was fell down or something. So instead of using that time to fix it, they just decided to tear the whole thing down. In Seoul, South Korea,
Seoul.
Oh gosh.
Seoul.
Well, messed that up from earlier. In Seoul, South Korea, there was a Cheonghae-chun freeway. It supported 168,000 cars per day, but local support, they tore it down and traffic congestion dropped sharply, partly thanks to subsequent investment in public transportation. Property values rose by 300%, and there was like this river underneath the freeway, so they sort of unearthed that and made it into a nice park. They restored the river's ecosystem and decreased the urban heat island temperature by 5 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All because of a stupid road?
All because of a stupid road. And
So-
they've been doing just fine.
Kray, didn't you once say that, like, there's a certain amount of lanes in a highway where, like, it just becomes useless? Like, after a certain point, it just doesn't help anymore?
Yeah, like, I think there's some, you know, like, you need a certain amount of lanes, but there... Yes, there is some point where you're just adding lanes. You're just inviting more people to congest those lanes.
Okay. Like 5-lane
completely
highways?
Yeah. Yeah. And
So would you say, like, the 5-lane highways in LA, those aren't very good?
it's hard to look at anecdotes. I'm just saying
Right,
overall.
there's an entire city called Los Angeles, and I don't think it's an anecdote.
That is an anecdote when you're talking about meta-analyses of cities.
So, okay, I
Okay,
feel like
well-
there's got to be, like, some rule for, like, when it's okay to add an extra lane to a road. Because if you never increase the amount of infrastructure you have, then what?
I think there are smarter ways to do it. Maybe to plan for multimodal transportation, so not just cars, because that's been shown not to be a sustainable solution. I'm not saying you can't increase infrastructure. I'm just saying focusing on adding a lane alone will not solve your problem. So there are some other possible solutions to this problem rather than just adding a lane or just increasing your capacity of public transportation. Something that's not very popular, and I can see why, is congestion pricing. Is basically you just take an area and you charge people money to be driving in that area. They do it in London, in the central part of London, and basically they just read your license plate and then you get a bill for driving in that area. So obviously people will try to jump to other forms of transportation like busing so they don't have to drive a car.
Wait. Like, they just... Can you explain that again? Like, that kind of confused me.
Yeah, so like let's say you're driving through the center of a city. As soon as you enter a certain area, they know when you have entered this area and when you have left this area, and then you take a certain, let's say, the charge per minute of driving in this area, you get that charged to you, and you'll have to pay that. The exact logistics of it, I don't know how they do it, but that's the idea. So it discourages people from driving.
That's terrible. I would hate that.
Yes, but it does work really, really well. It totally decreases congestion, and London uses that money to support and grow their public transit.
That's actually really cool, though.
It is cool. It's obviously not popular because it sounds absolutely terrible. Not very popular policy to implement. But yeah, decreasing lanes and charging people to drive. That's how you decrease congestion. I'm not saying that roads are bad or that everything is bad. I'm just saying the simplistic view of adding a lane will solve your traffic problems is a misconception, because it won't.
Yeah.
It takes more, I'd say it's just more complicated than that, and many, many studies have confirmed that since the 1930s. The moral of the story is, if you don't want any traffic, you should just get rid of all the roads.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you want to keep up with all of our latest episodes, you can subscribe to us on any podcast aggregator you get, like Apple Podcast or Google Play or anything. Also, if you want to share the episode with your friends, your family, Anybody who you think would enjoy a podcast or this podcast or noises, then you should send this their way.
And if you want to send us an email, because no one ever does, and you could be the first person to send us an email, you can do that by sending an email to sigbrotherspod@gmail.com.
And you can tweet us or follow us on Twitter at Significant Bros.
And you can subscribe to our fortnightly newsletter at tinyletter.com/significantbrothers.
Thanks for listening. Apparently Jimmy Kimmel has narcolepsy.
Really?
Wait, from like Full House? Oh, that's Kimmy Gibbler. Never mind.
Because they both have K in their name. That's right.